Hi, this is Steve Sawtell with Slot Car Corner. Today I'm going to demonstrate a tuning tip, share a tuning tip with you here that many racers tend to take for granted. They probably never give it a second thought. It's one of those tips, it's a little thing in and of itself. It may not make a huge difference in your car's performance, but when combined with other little tips, it's one of those things that can definitely help improve the performance of your car. What I'll demonstrate today is installing some replacement bushings, some aftermarket bushings. I'll show you how to align those bushings so that the center axis of the bushings is concentric with the center axis, the long axis of the axle. And the whole idea here is to reduce friction in the drivetrain. And particularly with the 1/32 cars, the motors are relatively small. They don't have a lot of power or torque. So any friction that gets introduced into that rear drivetrain will have a detrimental effect. It'll tend to reduce the amount of RPMs that you have at the rear wheel. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to use a bushing alignment kit that's offered on my website, www.slotcarcorner.com. This particular kit has 3 components to it. The first component is a diamond-coated burr bit. This is actually designed to sharpen chainsaw blades. It's designed to be chucked into a Dremel or some sort of a moto type tool. For our purposes, however, I would strongly recommend that you do not use a Dremel. Instead, we're going to use this by hand, and I'll demonstrate that in just a bit. The second component is a pin gauge. At first, this may look like an axle, a 3/32 axle, but there's a couple of notable differences. First, it's a bit shorter. It's about 2 inches. Most 3/32 axles are roughly 2 1/4 inches long. Some a little shorter, some a little longer. And the other thing here is, and you won't be able to pick this up without a micrometer or something, but the outer diameter of the pin gauge is slightly larger than 3/32 of an inch. And specifically what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the outer diameter of this pin gauge as close as possible to the inner diameter of the bushings that we're going to install in the chassis. And what we're trying to do there is we're trying to eliminate any slop between the axle and the bushing to ensure that the bushings are as perfectly aligned or concentric or as near concentric as possible with the center axis, the long axis of the axle once we actually insert it. The third component that's included in this particular bushing alignment kit, these are bronze bushings. Several manufacturers offer these bushings. This particular bushing is one of a Slot Car Corner bushing. It's called a racing bushing. What makes it a little different from most other bushings, there are a couple of things. One is, first of all, the inner diameter, the inner bore of this particular bushing is a little bit smaller than other manufacturers' bushings. And what that does is there's less slop when you install this onto a standard 3/32 axle, and it just makes it a little bit easier to get better alignment with the bushings, and there's less slop in the drivetrain as the rear wheels and the rear axle rotate. The second major difference here, notable difference on these particular bushings, is that they're counterbored. So in addition to the 3/32 bore that goes through, for the axle, there's a second bore that's slightly larger that goes about halfway through the counter bore. And basically what that's designed to do is to reduce the total surface area on the inside of this bushing. Less surface area on the inside of the bushing is less surface area that's riding on your axle. Therefore, there's less friction. This is an old trick. This is not something new. This has been around for quite some time in many different classes and scales. So we take advantage of it here. One other byproduct of the counter bore is when you lubricate these bushings with your favorite lubricant. If you put just a little drop on the side of the bushing that's got the counter bore, that counter bore will serve or act as a sort of well. It'll tend to hold that lubricant in place, and over time it'll be wicked into the inside of the bushing, between the bushing and the axle, through capillary action. So it's a nice little side benefit. Alright, so what we're going to do now is I'll go ahead and demonstrate how to use the kit to install these bushings and to align them. And keep in mind, in addition to having the near perfect alignment, this is something that's repeatable. You can do this each and every time. And again, this can be used on any plastic chassis that uses a 3/32 a nylon type bushing. And again, it's very easy to do. So we'll start with the bushing carriers on the plastic chassis. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use the diamond coated burr to enlarge the inside of that bushing carrier just very, very slightly. And there's a couple of reasons that we want to do this. If you've ever used one of these aftermarket bushings, whether it's a slot car corner bushing or somebody else's bushing, you may notice that it's a very, very tight fit, and on some of these chassis it will eventually cause a stress fracture where the bushing carrier will crack or possibly even break off. If that happens, at that point there's no practical way to repair the chassis. The chassis essentially is no longer useful, and you'll have to replace it. So by enlarging these bushing carriers here just a little bit, it prevents the bushings, once they're installed, from causing those cracks and those stress fractures. The second thing that it does is by enlarging this a bit, it provides a little bit more wiggle room for the bushings, so that once they're installed, it's a little bit easier for the bushings to align themselves once the pin gauge is inserted. The bushings, that extra wiggle room just lets them position themselves where they need to be positioned, to be properly aligned.